The Dominion first glimpsed Earth from beyond the heliosphere, through their observation cores layered with psychic crystal arrays. What they saw made them laugh, if beings like that even remembered how to laugh. A small, soft planet wrapped in turbulent weather and electromagnetic static. No warp lanes, no defense grids, no signal of unified purpose. They called us a developing biomass cluster. Not a threat, not even a curiosity. They didn't scan deep enough. Beneath the polar crust, under miles of ice that hadn't melted in human memory, something was waiting. Something built in silence, shielded from the stars by secrecy and fear. Not a rocket, not a space station. A war-born colossus forged to answer only one question. What do we do when they come? Humanity had already answered. We built Dominion 1. No leader ever admitted it existed. No news report ever dared to hint at it. Most of those who helped shape it died nameless. It was never meant to be revealed, unless the day came when Earth had no other choice. That day came with no warning. The sky broke open. Dominion vessels appeared without light or sound, casting shadows that reached from orbit to ocean. Their ships weren't made. They had grown, their hulls pulsing like muscle, their engines humming in frequencies that made birds drop dead from the air. The invasion wasn't declared. It began. One message pulsed across every open frequency. Biological rights void. Planetary inheritance reassigned. Prepare for correction. Correction, that's what they called it. Like Earth was an error in need of deletion. Cities screamed, militaries cracked. In 20 minutes, we lost half the satellite grid. In 1 hour, they landed in 6 continents. But the Dominion miscalculated. They thought Earth was blind. They didn't know that underneath the South Pole, our answer had already woken. If Dominion 1 hadn't been built, Earth would already be ash. That's not a theory. It's not a scare tactic. It's what every surviving command feed now agrees on. The Dominion didn't come to conquer us the way old empires did. They didn't want our cities, our culture, our minds. They wanted silence. They wanted to scrub the biosphere clean and rewrite the planet in their image. Not as a colony, as a memory. When the first of their landers struck, they didn't aim for armies. They went for water sources, digital infrastructure, nerve centers, everything that kept Earth functioning. Power grids dissolved into static. Medical systems went dark. Drones with hive minds raked through populated zones, mapping out who would be preserved and who would be rendered obsolete. Preserved didn't mean saved, it meant caged, enhanced, turned into something else. Global defense protocols fell apart in under an hour. Nation borders became useless. Languages collapsed into screams and code. If Dominion 1 hadn't activated, if that old key in the ice hadn't turned, we wouldn't have a chance. Humanity's only hope wasn't in the skies. It was under them. We didn't know exactly what the Dominion was, but the people who designed the warship didn't wait to find out. They built it for one thing, to survive the first blow and punch back hard enough that the stars would feel it. Because if we didn't fight now, we wouldn't just lose Earth. We'd lose the idea of humanity. And Dominion doesn't believe in second chances. Beneath the ancient ice, something stirred. For 40 years, Dominion 1 had slept in silence, buried in a pit so deep no satellite could trace its heat signature. The few who had ever stood on its inner decks were either dead or locked away in places the public didn't believe existed. There were no public documents, no schematics, just whispers, old rumors that the world's brightest minds had been taken off the books and disappeared into a frozen black site called Abyss Vault. There, in a chamber the size of a mountain, they built the last thing Earth would ever make in peace. A warship designed not for exploration or diplomacy, but for extinction defense. Dominion 1 wasn't just large, it was impossible. A kilometer-long fusion of steel, smart alloys, and something else. Something not entirely human. Its hull shimmered with adaptive layers, reacting to ambient temperature and kinetic pressure, mimicking the camouflage patterns of deep-sea creatures. Its reactor, codenamed Nyx Core, had never been tested. The theory was simple. Feed it gravitational pulses and let it burn until the stars ran dry. But none of that mattered now. The Dominion had come, and Earth had run out of options. When the kill order was authenticated, 2 genetic keys, 1 voice trigger, the chamber that had been frozen shut for 4 decades began to thaw. Miles of reinforced ice cracked like broken glass. A siren unlike any ever broadcast above ground began to echo, not just through corridors, but through the bones of the mountain itself. Protocol Epsilon. Planetary Defense Awakening. All personnel to command modules. Ignition sequence begins in T-minus 1800 seconds. The few souls stationed at the vault in those final months, caretakers, engineers, half-disgraced officers too stubborn to quit, snapped into motion. Most of them hadn't believed this day would come. The drills had become routine, ghost duties for a ship that was more myth than machine. But as the ice split and the lights in the walls flared alive one by one, they understood. This wasn't an exercise. The end had come. Commander Sarai Rain was the first to reach the primary bridge. Her boots echoed through the causeway, frost still clinging to the metal railings. She didn't stop to admire the view. She'd seen it before. The long, curved window looking out over the hangar field, where the ship's undercarriage extended like the ribs of some sleeping giant. What made her pause was the hum. It was faint, deep and low, but steady. A heartbeat. She placed her gloved hand against the wall. It was warm. "She's waking up," a voice said behind her. Rain turned to see Lieutenant Oswin, face pale, breath misting in the cold. He looked terrified. They all did. But it didn't matter. "We're 30 minutes from full activation," she said flatly. "Get me core status and pull the command roster from cryo. Everyone we've got. I want a flight team assembled in 10. Oswin hesitated. "We haven't run a full simulation in over 6 years. Some systems—" "We don't have time," she snapped. "We launch or we lose the planet." That silenced him. He nodded and ran. The bridge of Dominion 1 wasn't like those on modern naval ships or space shuttles. It wasn't rows of clean panels and blinking lights. It was darker, older, curved steel and thick plating, interface seats sunken into the floor like thrones. Above them, the command dome was coated in a material designed to see through atmosphere, cloud, space, and even low-level shielding. No external cameras, no reliance on data feeds, just pure sensory integration. The interface chair at the heart of the bridge, the throne, as some called it, remained empty. It had one user, Captain Mara Voss, frozen for 17 years in cryostasis, the only pilot ever successfully linked to Dominion 1's neural combat grid without permanent brain damage. Her heartbeat, measured once every hour by nanite sensors, was slow, steady, waiting. The reanimation crew had already begun the revival process. Cryo units hissed as fluid drained. Medical bots extended thin metal limbs, injecting stimulants, restarting nerves. Outside the chamber, technicians monitored the timeline like priests watching a sacred ritual. Voss had been the final contingency. She hadn't volunteered. She'd been selected. Back then, when the Dominion threat was still just theory, the Command Council had concluded something chilling. If Earth ever needed this ship, it meant the world above had already fallen. There wouldn't be time to train anyone. So they picked one soldier, one mind, one weapon. And they buried her alive. Her first breath came with a gasp, the sound of air flooding lungs that hadn't moved in nearly 2 decades. Her eyes snapped open, and for a second they were completely white, data pulses flooding in. Then she blinked, and the room returned to view. "Captain Voss," the medtech said, voice steady. "You've been revived under Protocol Epsilon. Command transfer is active. Global defense has collapsed. Project Dominion 1 is now in your hands." Mara didn't respond. Not immediately. She sat up slowly, letting her mind catch up. The memories returned like pieces of broken glass. Training, war games, final briefing, the cold, and the promise. "If you wake up, it means the sky is burning." She rose to her feet, muscles trembling under the pressure of coming back to life. A combat suit waited beside the pod. She pulled it on without a word. Every motion was mechanical, efficient, no wasted energy, no questions. Not yet. She stepped onto the bridge 15 minutes later, every officer turning as she entered. Rain stood at attention. So did the rest. "Systems?" Voss asked, voice hoarse but clear. "Reactor online. Weapons cold, but charging. Shields at 70%. Rain swallowed. "Mara, we're not ready. We thought we had another decade." "You had enough," Voss said. She walked to the interface chair, placed her hands on the armrests. "Link me in." Rain hesitated. "You'll burn out." "Not before I light a fire of my own." The moment her fingers touched the pads, the ship responded. Lights shifted. The hum deepened. Dominion 1's mind, half machine, half something else, opened like a gate. Neural pulses shot through Voss's spine, past every firewall and limiter the engineers had once warned her about. She didn't scream. She grinned. "Target uplink confirmed," Oswin called. "Dominion warforms in low orbit, 5 ships, planetary sweep pattern. They've already deployed Terra swarm drones in all major cities." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Open the launch gates," she said. The mountain above them split open. A tremor rolled through the ice shelf as Dominion 1 stirred from its tomb. Above the vault, the Antarctic sky fractured into falling snow and ruptured silence. The launch gates, sealed for generations by layers of glacial crust and adamantium shielding, cracked open like the jaws of a buried titan. Ridges of steam and vapor blasted skyward, momentarily blinding the high-orbit Dominion scanners. To them, the sudden eruption registered as an anomaly, perhaps seismic, perhaps a geothermal event, a low-priority blip, not a threat. That mistake would cost them. Within the command dome of Dominion 1, Captain Mara Voss sat motionless, her body fused with the interface as the ship's systems melted into her mind. The old pain of neural overclocking was gone. Her body remembered it, the way a scar remembers fire, but this was different. The ship was ready for her now. Eager, almost. It had waited decades in the dark for someone to finish what had begun. "Altitude breach in 15 seconds," Rain called from the command node, her voice carrying that tight edge between awe and terror. "Reactor stability?" Voss asked without turning. "Nominal," came Foster's reply. "We're running at 86% output, enough to fly, enough to fight, but we don't want to stay up there too long." "We won't," Voss replied coldly. "Not if I can help it." Above them, the mountain crater howled open as Dominion 1 rose through fire and ice. Its hull scraped against rock as magnetic lifts surged beneath it. The earth trembled. Giant pistons detached and exploded outward, clearing the last barriers. Pillars of smoke followed the ship as it broke the surface, black and massive, like a blade cutting up from the underworld. On the icy plains outside, the few surviving survey drones caught the moment. A shadow rose from the earth, bigger than any known vessel in human records. Its surface shifted as the armor reconfigured, adjusting to the atmosphere, realigning kinetic plates. Weapons bays opened along its flanks with quiet menace. Long-forgotten power signatures reawakened and bled into the sky. The Dominion finally noticed. Far above, nestled in low orbit like vultures in formation, 5 Dominion dreadforms recalibrated. Their movements were not chaotic. They shifted as a single mind. One broke formation, arcing downward like a falling star. It had seen the heat signature. It had detected the neural pulse. It was coming to investigate. "Contact in 60 seconds, Oswin barked. "Dominion strike form en route. Model class unknown." Voss leaned back in the chair. The interface adjusted with her, a dozen screens unfolding around her like wings. In her mind's eye, she saw it all: weather patterns, debris fields, Dominion hive mesh, ground troop clusters, even oceanic distortion fields. Dominion 1's sensors weren't scanning. They were listening, feeling. And something was whispering back. "Show me its anatomy," she said. The projection formed in front of her. The incoming ship was lean, almost serpentine, with organic armor wrapped in crystalline filaments. It pulsed with light in segments, as though it breathed. It carried no visible weapon ports, typical of Dominion warcraft. But its biosignatures were high. Very high. It was alive, aware, and curious. "Distance?" she asked. 22 kilometers. Still descending." "Good." Voss raised one hand. Her fingers moved in tight, practiced gestures. Commands passed directly through her neural uplink. The ship responded like muscle to thought. On the dorsal ridge, 4 arc turrets rose and rotated into position, their barrels charged, humming with stored plasma drawn from the Nyx core's outer ring. "They think we're prey," Voss murmured. The ship replied, not in words, but in resonance, a low vibration that passed through her lungs and spine. Agreement. "Let's disappoint them." The turrets fired. 4 beams of raw particle plasma screamed into the sky, warping the air into ribbons. The strike form, caught mid-descent, didn't even try to evade. The Dominion never expected first contact to involve violence. They expected panic, diplomacy, begging. All 4 blasts hit. The strike form's outer shell cracked instantly. Crystalline armor shattered like bone under pressure. A ripple of emerald light burst from its side as the vessel twisted, shrieking in its own alien frequency. It tried to adjust course, now descending faster, but not by choice. It was falling. Impact was catastrophic. The Dominion ship slammed into the frozen tundra 4 kilometers east of the vault. A bloom of snow, ice, and shattered biometal surged upward like a white volcano. The shockwave knocked down every bird in a 200-mile radius. The blast cracked the ground. Sensors went blind. Then, silence. On the bridge, no one cheered. They were too busy watching the sky, because the rest of the fleet had just turned. "All 4 remaining dreadforms are shifting," Foster said, breathless. "They're not scanning anymore. They're hunting." "Let them," Voss replied. "Set intercept course." Rain turned. "Are we really doing this? 4 of them? We just got airborne." "We didn't build this ship to run," Voss said simply. "We built it so we'd never have to." Outside, Dominion 1 turned its nose to the sky. Engines fired with a scream, lifting the warship higher, faster, toward the edge of space. The clouds tore away in its wake. Lightning flickered behind it, caught in the turbulence of its passage. The hull shifted again, reacting to the thinning atmosphere. Armor panels locked, sealed, and braced. As the ship breached the stratosphere, the first Dominion dreadform fired. A violet beam, wide as a river, shot from the leading vessel. It didn't aim for Dominion One's engines or weapons. It aimed for the entire ship, hoping to vaporize it in one single overwhelming burst. Voss was already moving. She triggered the ship's lower flank plates, redirecting energy into the side stabilizers. Dominion 1 rolled mid-air, flipping beneath the beam just as it screamed past. The energy scorched the edge of the hull, melting part of the auxiliary fin. Internal alarms flared red. "Damage on lower wing cluster," Oswin shouted. "Is it flying?" Voss asked. "Still holding." "Then stay on target." The second Dominion ship joined the fray. This one was heavier, shaped like a crescent, with pulse batteries embedded in its arc. It unleashed a spread of heat-laced projectiles, thousands of living shells that swam through vacuum like eels made of metal and fire. Voss activated the dorsal hornets. Dozens of ports hissed open along the spine of Dominion 1. From each, tiny defense drones launched. Sleek, angular machines made for speed and slaughter. They flew like a storm, intercepting the enemy projectiles mid-space. Explosions rippled in rapid-fire succession as drone met drone, heat met fury. "Keep climbing," Voss ordered. "They want us close? Let's introduce ourselves properly." Dominion 1's core vibrated again, the hum rising now, pulsing through every wall. It wasn't stress, it was momentum. The ship wasn't pushing limits. It was remembering how to be a weapon. And the Dominion? They were just beginning to realize what they'd woken. Above Earth, the sky had turned to war. Dominion 1 surged through the thinning atmosphere, each meter of climb burning fuel like blood. Behind it, the aurora twisted into crimson coils, warped by the energy bleeding off the ship's shields. From orbit, Earth's upper shell looked cracked, scarred by the opening salvos of an Extinction-level battle. And Dominion 1 had just started bleeding back. "Two incoming from opposite vectors," Foster said, eyes locked to his interface. "One above, one looping from below. They're trying to box us in." "They don't know us yet," Voss muttered. "Let's introduce them to a cornered species." She didn't shout commands. She didn't need to. Her thoughts pulsed through the neural grid. Dominion 1's targeting systems adjusted instantly, focusing all tracking relays on the lower dreadform. The ship responded like it had been waiting. Its hull stretched subtly, redistributing weight. Magnetic coils hissed to life beneath the belly, aligning the spinal cannon. This wasn't a conventional weapon. It wasn't meant to suppress or disable. It had one purpose: end threats in a single breath. "Spinal cannon locked," Oswin confirmed, a note of disbelief in his voice. "Charging. 5 seconds." The enemy ship below didn't slow. It moved like a predator, trailing heat and kinetic mist, its surface splitting open to reveal glowing bone-plated weapons. Its targeting data was good. Too good. Every beam aimed not where Dominion 1 was, but where it would be. Didn't matter. "Fire!" Voss said. The ship obeyed. A thunderous pulse ripped through Dominion 1's frame. The spinal cannon discharged with a roar that fractured sound barriers in every direction. The bolt it launched wasn't visible light. It was massed plasma wrapped in gravitational distortion, a spear forged from raw physics. It struck the lower dreadform mid-climb. The Dominion ship's midsection collapsed inward, its organic hull folding like meat around broken glass. For a second, its shields tried to compensate, glowing gold, green, then blue, cycling through energy states faster than human tech could track. But the core failed. It exploded outward in a silent bloom, scattering pieces of burning alien metal across the stratosphere. "One down," Foster muttered, stunned. "Confirmed kill." No time to celebrate. The second ship was already on them. "Brace!" Rain shouted. "Brace now!" A cascade of razor-light projectiles screamed from above. They weren't solid. They were energy grown into shape, Dominion tech that sliced matter at the molecular level. The storm hit Dominion 1's left flank, shearing into armor, tearing through half a weapons bay. The ship screamed in response. Alarms, structural warnings, a tremor that felt almost like pain. "Pressure breach in Bay 9, Oswin called. "We lost 3 hornet nests." "We don't need 9 bays to kill a god," Voss growled. "Reroute power to dorsal shielding, full turn. I want her nose pointed right at their heart." The ship spun. It wasn't graceful. Dominion 1 wasn't designed to dance. It was built to bulldoze. The rotation jolted hard, plates groaning as G-forces slapped the crew back into their seats. Voss gritted her teeth against the pull, her neural link stabilizing the ship's balance faster than the physics could tear them apart. Now, nose to nose, the Dominion dreadform hovered like a winged cathedral, monstrous and gleaming, covered in tendrils of light and armor that shimmered like scales. Its weapons adjusted, its position stabilized. It was ready for the next round. So was Dominion 1. "Give me everything," Voss said. Rain didn't ask what she meant. She knew. All secondary batteries lit up at once. Railguns, plasma lances, electro-pulse cannons. The main deck vibrated as the ship vomited fire in a storm of coordinated destruction. Shot after shot screamed into the enemy's shield shell. Some bounced, some splashed. One punched through and clipped an engine pod, sending the dreadform listing. The Dominion ship answered. It screamed. Not vocally, not through any sound a human ear could catch, but every sensor on the bridge spiked as it unleashed a psychic pulse. Raw, weaponized emotion, fury, confusion, pain. It broadcast a frequency that dug into the crew's skulls, scratching the base of the mind. Oswin shouted, dropping to his knees. Rain clenched her jaw so hard it cracked a molar. Even Voss faltered for a half-second, as static bloomed behind her eyes. But then Dominion 1 responded. The ship's inner shielding activated. Not physical, but cognitive. A pulse shot through the neural network, cleansing noise, burning foreign input to ash. Voss felt it like a cold wind, a digital exorcism. "They're trying to talk now," she whispered. "After all this?" She leaned forward, eyes locked on the burning dreadform. "Tell them to shut up." Dominion 1 fired its rear grav drives, not to flee, but to pivot again, forcing its tail downward and spinning into a lunge. It plowed through the upper debris field, knocking chunks of ruined metal aside like a ship breaking ice. At close range, point defense lasers flared, shredding the remains of the enemy's hull plating. Impact was imminent. "Distance?" Voss barked. 500 meters and closing." "Too far for a clean ram," Rain warned. "Then we cut through." Voss triggered the prow. A section of the ship's bow retracted. Beneath it, an angular drill cannon emerged. Something old, primitive even, but devastating. A tungsten-tipped spike, sheathed in plasma. Designed not to hit from a distance, but to stab directly through capital ship armor and inject burning matter into its core. The enemy tried to scatter, pulling upward. Too late. Dominion 1 surged forward, the prow drill igniting in a burst of blue fire. The cannon struck the dreadform mid-spine, punching through 2 layers of biohull and ripping out the other side in a burst of ichor and flame. The Dominion ship shuddered, folded, then began to fall. A second kill. Voss let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Around her, the crew was silent, not in shock, but in focus. The neural pulse that had haunted them was gone. The sky around them cleared, filled only with drifting ash and the scattered remains of the second dreadform. 2 down, Foster whispered. 3 to go, Rain added grimly. Voss didn't respond. Her eyes were already scanning the tactical display, where the remaining Dominion fleet now hovered in a loose triangle. Their positions had changed. Wider spacing, unpredictable movement, adapting. "They're learning," she said, "which means next time they'll hit us harder." The ship buzzed under her hands, humming with recharged power. "Good," she said softly. "So will we." Silence settled over the bridge, thick and temporary, like the eye of a storm. Dominion 1 hovered in the upper atmosphere, scarred but still whole, surrounded by the drifting debris of its second kill. Chunks of alien plating spiraled like dead stars, burning faintly as they fell into Earth's gravity well. A few pieces made it to the stratosphere, their mass triggering small sonic booms as they burst into flame, painting streaks across the sky. But the war was far from over. Captain Voss sat forward in her command cradle, watching the tactical display redraw in real time. The 3 remaining Dominion dreadforms hadn't advanced. Not yet. They hovered in a perfect spread formation, just beyond weapon range, their surfaces dim and unreadable. Each of them had pulled back several kilometers after the second ship fell. Not in retreat, in calculation. "They're not moving," Rain said, her tone suspicious. "They are," Voss corrected. "Just not toward us. They're feeding data to each other, running simulations, mapping our behavior." "Can they do that?" Oswin gave a nervous shrug. "They're a hive species. What one sees, the rest learn. Every move we make, they're dissecting it, getting faster." "How long until they adapt?" Foster asked. "They already are." Voss studied the screen in silence. The first dreadform had been caught off guard. The second had attempted to fight head-on. But these next 3, there was something different in how they positioned themselves. Looser, yes, but smarter too. Their weapons were concealed, their emissions barely registered on the sensors. And one of them, the largest, kept pulsing faint signals toward Earth. They weren't just trying to kill Dominion 1. They were preparing something bigger. "New strategy," Voss said finally. "We board them." Rain turned. "I'm sorry. What?" "You heard me. If we stay at range, they'll out-adapt us. They're building a strategy now, one we won't survive. We stop that by cutting out their brain, literally." "You want to send troops inside a living dreadform?" Oswin asked. "You saw what happened to our squads during the Deep Hollow drills. Those things think while they bleed." "We don't have time to be cautious. We take one of the ships. Extract intel if we can. Wound it from within if we can't. Either way, we learn how they work. Before they learn how to kill us." Foster's voice was quiet. "We can't just dock with them. No port, no tether." "We don't need to dock." Voss's eyes darkened. "We break in." 10 minutes later, the breaching team was assembled in Hangar Bay 2. The air smelled like oil and ozone, a mix of repair fumes and adrenaline. Armored figures lined up along the edge of the boarding platform. 12 in all, the best of what was left from the Abyss Vault's frozen strike group. Their suits were matte black, lined with reactive light strips and heat-shielded plating. No insignia, no flags. Just the simple white letters on their chests. HDF, Human Defense Force. Each one carried a rifle designed for internal ship combat. Short-barreled, high-velocity, caseless rounds with smart tracking and adaptive recoil. Grenades were magnet-sealed to their chests. Vibroblades sat in arm sheaths. Their visors ran silent HUD feeds. No sound, no chatter, just a heartbeat monitor and mission time. Voss stood at the edge of the platform as the dropship prepped for launch. She wore the same armor, but hers bore one difference. A neural link plug connected her helmet directly to Dominion 1. She would guide the ship's external systems mid-mission, automated cover fire, mapping scans, interference jamming. She wasn't sending them alone. Foster's voice crackled in her ear. Target is 20 kilometers ahead, the smaller of the 3 remaining dreadforms. It's slowly rotating, no visible weapons active. This might be our window. Might be, Voss said. Won't get a better one. The drop bay doors split open. Outside, the blackness of near space greeted them, veiled with flickers of fire from atmospheric burns and distant kinetic discharges. Far ahead, the alien vessel hovered, oblong and crooked, shaped like a rib cage twisted in on itself. Its outer surface looked grown, not built, shimmering with organic ridges and curved biometal, gently pulsing with faint golden light. Launch in 3, the automated system counted down. 2, 1 dot. The dropship catapulted from the launch rack with a muted thud. It streaked across the void, trailing plasma exhaust, its outer plates adjusting to the thin pressure and high radiation of low orbit. Inside, the team barely moved. No words, just the sound of synced breathing and boots locked into place. Then, impact. The breaching tip slammed into the enemy hull with a force that cracked atmosphere. The nose twisted inward, using a high-frequency vibradrill to pierce through the biometal layers. It didn't take long. The dreadform's outer wall wasn't armored for this. It didn't expect intrusion. As the hull peeled open, the ship reacted. It was awake now. The dropship doors exploded outward, and the boarding team flooded in. Inside, it was darker than expected. Not pitch black, but living dark. The walls were flesh-like, fibrous, strung with twitching tendons and veins that pulsed in time with a heartbeat that wasn't theirs. The air was thick, humid, and carried a faint copper scent, like blood and electricity. Their boots stuck slightly to the floor with every step. "Stay tight," Voss commanded over the comms, her voice cutting through helmet feeds. "Weapons hot, no assumptions. If it moves, mark it. If it screams, shoot it." They moved as one. The ship's layout made no architectural sense. Corridors curved without reason. Doors opened and closed based on proximity, but had no panels or controls. The internal temperature rose the deeper they went, and the lights embedded in the ceiling, bioluminescent sacs that contracted with each breath, shifted from gold to deep red. And then came the sound. A low murmur, like something whispering just below hearing range. The Dominion dreadform wasn't passive. It was trying to communicate. Thoughts crawled along the back edges of the soldiers' minds. Images of Earth covered in alien growth, of cities drowned beneath oceans of biomass, memories that weren't theirs, voices without mouths. "Psychic pressure building," Foster warned from the bridge. "Get what you need fast. We don't know how long the mental link will hold." They reached the central chamber 7 minutes after breach. At the center of the chamber floated what looked like a heart, suspended by living cables, twitching with each pulse of power. Around it, data sacs, fleshy pods filled with glowing fluid, twitching softly, organic memory cores, living servers, whatever counted as the Dominion's brain. "Data tap ready," Voss said, sliding a compact spike from her hip and pressing it into one of the pods. It hissed, twitched, then went still. For 1 second, everything was quiet. Then the walls screamed. The scream wasn't made of sound. It was pressure, a psychic spike that pierced every helmet, every skull, every nerve like a blade of light. Half the team dropped to their knees instantly, weapons clattering to the floor. Blood trickled from Oswin's nose. One soldier began convulsing, her HUD blinking red as her vitals spiked into fatal ranges. Voss didn't fall. She gritted her teeth, every nerve in her body screaming in protest as the Dominion ship retaliated, not with guns, but with thought. It didn't want them dead. Not yet. It wanted to rewrite them, to make them understand. But she didn't come to understand. She came to end it. "Kill the heart!" she shouted, raising her rifle and unloading 3 rounds into the pulsing organ hanging at the chamber's center. The first bullet sparked off a shielding membrane. The second tore through a vein. The third struck deep, and the entire chamber lurched as the ship convulsed. A deep, sickening groan shuddered through the walls. The organic lighting spasmed, flashing between red and white. The fleshy floor beneath them rippled, and the walls started closing in. "Back! Fall back!" Rain barked, dragging a soldier to his feet. The memory cores around the chamber burst one by one, flooding the air with thick blue steam. Voss yanked the data spike from the breached pod. It was glowing hot, half melted but still blinking green. They had it. A copy of the Dominion's core architecture. Enough data to understand how they moved, how they thought, how they killed. "Extraction now," Voss barked into the comm. "We've got what we came for. Light the corridor." Behind her, 2 soldiers flanked the hallway and lobbed incendiary charges into the mouth of the twisting passage. Fire spread like liquid, coating the walls in napalm. The Dominion ship shrieked again, not from pain but from rage. And then it started changing. The walls peeled open to reveal limbs, jointed clawed appendages that erupted from the sides of the corridor and began crawling. Not mechanical, not separate. The ship itself was pulling pieces of itself free to hunt the intruders. "Move!" Voss ordered. They ran. The return to the breach point was chaos. The ship had shifted. Nothing was where it had been. Hallways had rerouted, doors had vanished, and the air had grown hot, so hot that parts of the armor started peeling from the heat stress. Behind them, the limbs were catching up. One soldier fell, dragged screaming into a side wall that closed around him like a mouth. His screams cut off in an instant. Another was skewered through the back by a tendon lined with barbs. Voss didn't stop. She couldn't. Not now. The spike in her hand was everything. Ahead, the breach point loomed. The dropship was still anchored, its hull scorched but intact. Its side doors were open, defensive turrets barking blue flame at whatever crawled out of the ship's arteries. Voss was the last to board. As she leapt across the final gap, a clawed limb lashed out and grabbed her leg, dragging her back. She twisted mid-fall and fired point-blank into the socket behind the claw. The limb recoiled with a shuddering screech, and Rain grabbed Voss's wrist, hauling her into the ship. "Seal it!" Voss barked. The dropship's magnetic clamps disengaged. Explosive bolts fired. The hull kicked backward with a force that slammed everyone into the floor. The Dominion dreadform tried to retaliate. Spines shot from its outer skin, barely missing the retreating ship as it fell away and peeled toward Dominion 1. On the bridge, Foster's console lit green. "We've got them!" he shouted. "Boarding team inbound!" The dropship hit the launch net, fast and rough, its hull scraping sparks as it screeched into the hangar bay. Emergency crews rushed forward. The ship hissed open, and smoke poured out. Voss stumbled down the ramp, armor scorched, blood trailing from a cut along her jaw. In her hand, the data spike flickered dimly. "Get this to engineering," she rasped. "Now!" 2 officers took it and vanished. Voss didn't watch them go. She turned to the others, what remained of the boarding team. 4 out of 12. Rain, Oswin, and 2 privates with hollow eyes and blackened armor. "We lost good people," she said, voice raw. "But we got what we needed." On the main screen, the Dominion fleet had shifted again. The other 2 ships were moving. Slower, cautious. They knew now. One of their minds had been pierced. They didn't know what had been taken, but they felt it. A wound in their collective. And they would respond. Foster spoke from the helm. Data's being decrypted, and, Captain, you're going to want to hear this. He tapped a key. A sound filled the bridge. Not static, not alien words. A voice. Female. Human. Speaking English. If you're hearing this, then you've reached the edge of the storm. We are survivors of Quadrant 9C. We resisted. We learned. You're not the first. You're not alone. The crew froze. The message repeated, slightly distorted, but clear. This is Resistance Node 27, broadcasting from the wreck of the Kalari Dawn. Dominion isn't invincible. Their mind can break. Their ships can burn. You just have to strike hard enough. Voss stared at the display, stunned. For the first time, she wasn't looking at an invasion. She was looking at a war. A galactic one. Rain spoke first. There are others. Voss nodded slowly. Get me everything we've decrypted. Ship specs, weak points, psychology patterns. If other survivors are out there, they've found ways to bleed the enemy. We're going to find them. She turned toward the stars beyond the glass, where the last two dread forms still waited. And then we're going to show Dominion what happens when Earth stops hiding.